Hello and welcome to this new series in which I'll be explaining the very base of Civilization 6. Now keep in mind that Rise and Fall is on, but that does not affect the basic way the game works. So let's start off with the very first thing you'll do. You can create a game yourself. In the top you can choose a set of rules or scenarios or expansions. So like I said, I'm going to play with Rise and Fall, but it won't change the basic way the game works. You can pick any leader you want or pick a random one. Well, let's see. What should I go with? That's a fun one. I haven't played Japanese yet, so let's do that. You can choose your game difficulty. And remember that the top one is always easiest and the bottom one is the hardest. You can choose your own game speed. This basically means the amount of turns it takes to reach the end of the game. So for example, if you go marathon, you will have 1500 turns instead of just 500. But building things, researching things, getting the culture, it will take just as long. It's all scaled. So it's not like you'll be done quicker and have a lot more time to go to war, for example. There is some extra time, but not that much. You can choose a map type, which is quite a list, really. But it's pretty self-explanatory. You can choose a map size. Now, I usually play standard, but the bigger the map, the larger the amount of civs you can have. There's also advanced setup, and this is where things might get a little bit complicated, but we'll do it one thing at a time. The rule set is what we saw before. Difficulty, the start era. You can choose to begin from any era, and subsequently the game will boost you by giving you extra settlers and stuff to compensate. The game speed is what we just talked about. You can have a slider here to determine the amount of city-states. I usually go with 9, but if you would like more, for example for a diplomatic victory with a Gathering Storm, 14 might be a good idea. There's a lot of stuff you can do. You can adjust resources. The world's age. No, I have never done anything with this, so I do not exactly know what it'll give you. You can have a start position, balanced or standard, or you can have it legendary. So if you know you're going to play Civ you're really bad at because you've lost a couple of times already, you might consider getting yourself a legendary starting position. This is just stuff for the climate, stuff like that, sea level. It's nice things to tweak with, although I'm not entirely sure how they would affect gameplay, as I always leave them on standard. You can also, and this is a very important part of the advanced setup, you can choose which kind of victories are allowed. So if, for example, you only want war and you don't want to worry about having to take out religious units or having to build a rocketry platform to shoot up some rockets, you can just switch those off. You could go for that, but then the game would not really work. So let's switch these back on. You can limit the amount of turns, and you can have a no turn limit. You can have a custom limit, or you can enter an amount of turns total for the entire game and then it ends. Or you can have the game speed and that ends at 2050 AD. There is the possibility to have duplicate leaders. So for example, you want to play Rome or Japanese like me, but you still want them to be able to join the game. You can just tick this off and they'll spawn as duplicates. This is not a guarantee, but the game will make sure that when setting up the civs, that's an option. Usually you do get duplicate leaders if you tick this off. You can choose to have no barbarians or teams, and teams in single player, I've not seen that come back yet in over 300 hours, so That is something else, but that usually works for multiplayer though. You can choose to have no tribal villages, but that would make exploring the world a lot less worthwhile, except for the virtual runners and stuff. But tribal villages give you a lot of extra boost and loot, so I would just always leave that ticked off, to be honest. You can have team share visibility. This is important because, on the contrary to the fact that there's I've never seen an actual team in single player the way they are in multiplayer. Team share visibility does count up to allies, if I'm not mistaken, with city-states. So that's something to be aware of. Lastly, you can have a game and map random seed that you can enter. So if you read about one and someone give the seed, you can just put it in here, or it just randomly generates one for you. And if you're all good to go, if you've chosen what you'd like, you can just press start game right there. And the game will start and you can go ahead and do your thing. So this was video 1. Video 2 it will be about moving units and starting a city. I want to thank you for watching and have a good one.